Got my classic Volvo Series V today.
I'm going with a new one.
It's a nice rainy day. Rainy day cigar.
I have the Punch Golden Era. I've seen the Punches before, but I've never seen this one. So I'm excited. Went to for my birthday. Had a great birthday.
Saw it on the socials.
Went to what the heck? Why is this doing this? I don't want to do it that way. I just want it to open. Just open. Went and had Wells Burgers in Rockwall.
Yeah.
Good place. Taught their kids.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I've taught their kids. At least one of them. I've had a couple of kids with that last name, so it could have been one of them as well, but I'm not sure. Then we went over to El Dorado, right there off the square in Rockwall. I like that place. Very low key. It was just us and the owner. Well, the employee. I don't know. He's not the owner.
Had the place to yourself.
Yeah, it was kind of nice. A little strong for a Connecticut, but I like it. It punches you. Pun intended.
Pun intended. Dad joke of the day. Our kids have we have 2 kindergartners, and they have a theme every single day for the rest of the year. Last 26 days of the year, they have a theme for every day of the week that corresponds with the alphabet. And so for Jay, which was a day or two ago, they had to bring a joke. And I felt like such a failure of a dad because I did not prepare them. Like, they knew they had to, but I'd planned on giving them a good one on the way to school because I take them to school. And I totally forgot until later in the day. And so I was like, dadgummit. So when I picked him up, I was like, all right, what was your joke? These kids delivered. They did.
What was it?
They did so good. But we,
Okay. So what was your dad joke?
a lot of times sitting around the dinner table, I just tell dad jokes. It's kind of one thing we do. So they are prepped, but they're also kindergartners. So it's like, I don't know how much of this you're taking in and remembering. So I picked them up from school and I was like, all right, what was your dad joke? Just cringing because they'll make up jokes all the time. And it's
Those are the best. Those are the best jokes.
It's hilarious
sometimes.
to them. One of them does long story jokes. So you don't know when to laugh because you're not sure when the punchline happened. But he didn't do a long story joke this time. He said, classic joke. What do you call 3-Hump Campbell? Pregnant. Classic. That was his. And then his brother's, who's also in kindergarten, he said, knock, knock.
Who's there?
Old lady.
Old lady who?
Old lady who?
Oh, gosh.
So I was like, okay, you delivered.
That's nice. I like it.
Good job, kids.
I like it.
I was really worried that the whole day, that's all I could think about is like, I forgot to give him a joke.
But you're teaching your kids well. Humor is solves a lot of things.
I give them, jokes just about every day when we have dinner at the table together, which was not tonight because I worked late, soccer practice. Oldest kid had something. Like, it was just one of those weeknights. You know all about those.
Yeah, we're on the downhill side of that for a while, hopefully. Probably till the end of July. If we can get there. We're in this weird phase of life because it's like we have one transitioning and another transitioning, but it's two very, very different aspects of life. Mm. And so, like, our senior is ready to get to the next phase, but we still have like 3 weeks left.
I'm doing the wonderful thing you like to do on podcasts. of refilling the lighter. It's all good dead air.
It's my favorite. One of my favorite things about smoking a cigar is doing that. I mean, if I'm being honest, like there are the little things in life.
Premium butane.
I like Zippo butane a little bit better.
It's freezing.
Yeah, it's cold.
Oh, yeah, there she goes.
Now there's the flame.
Fire.
Stars won.
Yeah.
Did you watch?
I did.
I did too.
I watched a lot more than I would have. And I'm glad I stayed for Game 7. Because,
Were you going to be out?
No. I'm glad I kept watching.
Oh, okay.
Because they were down 2-0 with, what, 6 minutes left?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, this is when you turn it off and you wake up the next morning and you see that score and you're like, I should have kept watching. That's happened to me so many times.
I stayed tuned in as long as I could and as much as I could be tuned in. It was a great game. Great game. I like, okay, so again, we are not a hockey show, but when did they change it? You could deflect the puck off of players in the blue, inside the...
Off the skate?
Off the skate.
Yeah. I was wondering
that was a big thing about Brett Hull. Remember when they won
Mm-hmm.
there was a couple, in the 90s, he had deflected it and he was in the zone. So it obviously it has changed since between now and then. Just don't know when.
Yeah. That was great. I want to be really excited, but also the way they're winning these games, it makes you kind of nervous, right? They're just kind of by the skin of their teeth, and they're on and they're not on, and they just happen to be on in the last 6 minutes of Game 7.
Well, and just one person.
And won it, and you got a hat trick in a period, which I think I was trying to find this exactly, but I think it's only happened one other time in all of NHL history where someone got a hat trick in a single period.
Huh. Didn't know that.
Hockey nuts, if I'm totally wrong and that's happened 27 times, let us know.
Well,
but
one was an empty netter.
Yeah.
I did see that.
Yeah.
Which is fine. Did you see them throwing the hats?
Did you listen to the Colorado announcers?
No.
They were complaining about scoring on the empty net with 2.7 seconds left.
Oh, I don't have a problem with that at all.
No.
And I wouldn't have had a problem
You're
with
going to pull your goalie. You're going to pull your goalie.
Yeah, and I wouldn't have had a problem with it. It'd have been the opposite way either.
Exactly. Yeah. It goes both ways. Yes, I saw the hats and somebody threw a drink.
Yeah. Well, the hats were coming on the ice before the goal was even scored.
It would have been funny if you missed it. I mean, not really, but an open net goal.
I'm sure that's happened before.
Yeah. Get too excited.
But yeah, it was fun to watch. They start Game 1 tomorrow against Winnipeg. I don't know anything about that team.
They apparently are not as good as Colorado from the hockey people I've talked to, and their goalie is in kind of a bad stretch.
But they won the series, right? 7. So
yes, against the Blues, and kind of in the same way. They came back and won at the end of the game with St. Louis. So I didn't watch that game. I was just looking at box scores. But I'm a little bit excited because we have this series now with Winnipeg, and Vegas is playing Edmonton.
Right.
So if Vegas and the Stars win these series, then they'll play each other in the Western Conference Finals. And if that goes to at least like 6 games, they'll still be playing when I'm in Vegas at the end of the month.
Ooh. Are you going to try to go?
I won't go. It'll be way too expensive.
How close is that to the Strip?
Oh, it's right on it.
Oh.
Yeah, it's T-Mobile Arena. It's right. Like there's Park MGM is the closest casino to T-Mobile, but it's right on the Strip.
Huh. I've never been to Vegas. I think we established that earlier in the podcast, but
if you ever want to go, I know a guy. Give some pointers.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll be there at the end of the month, and so I'm excited about that. We can maybe see we'll go hang out somewhere. But it would just be fun because every time we go to Vegas all throughout the year, a lot of times in the summer and in the fall, before hockey starts back up, there's people always wearing Vegas Golden Knights gear all the time. Yeah, it's very popular. They're very proud of their hockey team. Well, it's Vegas. Like, they had the hockey team before anything else.
Because now they have the Raiders.
They're about to get the A's.
Okay.
When they build that stadium. They don't have an NBA team. So, I think the NHL was the first big professional sport that they had. And so they support him really well. You see a lot of Vegas Golden Knights gear around there. So I've always thought it'd be fun to wear Stars gear, but I've never done it because the series hasn't been going on. But if they're playing each other, I'm definitely going to be Starsed out.
Yeah, I would be.
Yeah.
I don't know. I wouldn't do that in Philadelphia if I was a Cowboy fan.
I did. You know that story, right?
Yes, I know. I advise against that.
I wore my Witten jersey and survived.
The Twitch says don't forget about the WNBA. We're not even going to talk about that.
That's been the total amount of time we will discuss the WNBA on this podcast for the year. 5 seconds of WNBA.
If Caitlin Clark.
Yes. Hey, there's somebody else good this year, right? That just got in.
She's in Dallas, apparently.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
The Wings.
Nico will trade her. Don't worry. I have a buddy that I'll text like last night. I'm watching Jalen Brunson just burn the Celtics.
He's one of my son's favorite players, and he was so excited.
And I text him. I'm like, Nico would have traded Brunson too. He was like, don't go down that hole, dude. Just stay out of it. It's your birthday. You want to stay in a good mood.
Stay positive.
Stay positive. Well, then today I sent him a stat, and he was like, don't do it. Don't do it to yourself. I'm like, I can't help it. So in NBA news, the socials are saying that Dirk could possibly be the next GM. I realize that is very wishful thinking and never going to happen, but I'm hopeful.
Is it wishful thinking, though? Would he be a good GM? How does that transfer?
Well, I think Michael Finley is a good assistant to the GM. So I think.
Man, that was a fun team.
Man, which one? Finley?
Finley, yeah. That was a fun team.
That was a fun team.
Nash.
Dirk.
Jet. That was a fun team to watch.
And I think, too, I think the thing that's bothering me the most about what's happening is, we watched last night. If you watched the Brunson-Tatum game, they were in control of the ball something like 70% of the game, the two of them. I don't remember exactly the numbers, but plus or minus 60%. More on the plus side.
Yeah.
And we had the same thing. And defense wins championships. So I'm not going to bring the Debbie Downer on the podcast today, but he did trade away Luka.
Yeah. It's been established.
So the socials asked if Nico gets Giannis. I don't think that's going to happen, but you'd have to trade away all of your pieces to get that.
Yeah.
And we only have a first-round pick this year and then not another one until 2030.
Jeez.
So it would be, I suppose, not impossible because in the NBA nothing's impossible, but probably not likely because Giannis is really good and he likes Milwaukee. And I don't think they would do what Nico did to Luka. I think they're going to roll out the red carpet and pay him even more money.
Even if they were thinking about it, they're not going to do it after they saw what happened to Nico.
Correct. I mean, or at least put him on the open market and get as much as you possibly could.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to talk about that today because it'll just make me mad. And we already said it's going to be a positive day.
It's going to be a positive day.
But so I gave my test today. So we talked a lot about the teacher allotment, student loans, and all that stuff last week. We talked about teacher allotment back on episode 15.1, I think, is when we talked about it. So today I gave my exam. And between what we saw on Saturday or Sunday, whatever day Abbott signed the voucher thing, and then today, the amount of I was trying to explain it to my wife today. Just when I worked in the trucking industry, I enjoyed the chase of a profit. And I don't know how to really convey that message. I don't really know how to describe the feeling of making thousands of dollars in a minute. I don't really know how to describe that. Okay, very stressful because there's a lot of money at stake at any given time. But in my educational career, I've never felt that. Yeah. Today, it felt like I was chasing that same thing that I wanted to get away from so badly. And so as I'm grading these tests and I'm looking at it, and 99% of it is out of my control. There's nothing I can do at this point, right? I do have the ability to grade the essays, but the essays are pretty easy, pretty forward. There's nothing. It's like one thing. And it's only like 1.5 points on the exam. So it's not going to sway it one way or the other. But it's just like, I should not be stressing over this, which I know I'm a good teacher. I know I'm good at what I do. But at the same time, it's like, if one kid or two kids or five kids decide that today is a bad day for them, it totally screws me.
Right.
And I just don't.
It's a one-day snapshot.
Yeah, and I don't know how to fix it. Like, there's not a solution to it that I can come up with. And then also, it just makes me feel gross. Like, it makes me feel like this is not why I'm doing this. Yeah. But if I don't play the game, I'm potentially losing out on $30,000 in 1 year. So times 5, that's $150,000. Then I just watched Abbott sign that bill, and it just made me feel gross. And I don't know. That's the only descriptor that I can come up with. Because, like, we've talked about ESAs quite a bit on here, and the pros and the cons of it, and more the cons than the pros because we're pro teacher in this podcast. But it's like, it just feels gross. Is that I don't know how else to explain it. Because it just feels like we're chasing the dollar. And that's not what educating children is about.
Yeah, I was thinking about that on my drive in today. I was listening to some podcasts and they were talking about it. And I was thinking, they still haven't passed the funding bill. Like, they got the ESA passed, and it took a week or so, maybe not a full week, and got it signed. But now it's like it's not really being talked about anymore because the other education bills to bring up the funding and teacher pay. And I thought, I'm not saying this is correct, but I'm just saying that I don't think the majority of the public care that much. I think teachers do, and people who are close to teachers do. But I think if you pull them out as an outlier and just poll everybody else, I think it's kind of like we talked about, an ivory tower conservative idea.
Right. That
sounds good. Like, yeah, choice, freedom, all big, important words. And everybody else really doesn't care that much. Like, yeah, we should probably have that. Yeah, teachers should probably get paid, but they're not storming the Bastille for teacher pay.
No, and I'm not going to disagree with you at all on that.
So I was thinking about that, and I was like, well, the problem is that teachers will still do their job. I said that's the problem. I mean that in a way that people begin to care about something whenever the problem is in their face and they're having to deal with it. And unfortunately, that's just the way it is. People generally kick the can down the road and don't try to fix things. I mean, look at our roads. Like, nobody's out there fixing roads that are just pretty good. They're waiting until they're trashed, and then they get fixed. Things will get fixed till it's really bad. It's in your face. It's a major problem. There's not a lot of proactive work going on. And so, but teachers aren't going to let it get there, in my opinion, because they're still going to take care of their kids. They're still going to make it get done. Like, you're going to have teacher shortages, more kids in classrooms, but the teachers, just like they did with COVID, are still going to go out there and get the job done. And so at the end of the day, the problem is really not going to be in people's faces because teachers just continue to pick up the slack. And so we're almost to the middle of May and the session ends in 45 days. And now that school choice is passed, I don't really see Abbott calling back into special session like he has in the past.
Oh, I totally agree.
In the past, he's called back into special session several times to get school choice, to try to get it passed, and it hasn't. That's been the impetus for that. And if you're not familiar with the way Texas works, the legislature only meets every other year. And it meets for a period of time that ends in June. And then everybody goes home back to their real jobs. All the representatives and senators do. Or the governor can call them back into a special session to try to get more work done. And I don't see him doing that. So it's like you have bills through the House and Senate to address, teacher pay and school funding now that ESAs have passed. And I hate to say this, but I don't have like a passing percentage like above 70%. thought in my brain that it happens.
I'm hopeful, but that's all I have. I the report card thing that came out last week or the week before is indicative of the crisis that's happening. But the solution that they've given so far is just vouchers.
Mm-hmm.
But you're not fixing the problem.
Mm-hmm.
And so, not to go down the same hole that we've gone down multiple times, but it's like, why put together the task force to try to fix it if you're not going to follow the task force suggestions?
Yeah.
And you're not wrong. You know a lot of teachers. I know a lot of teachers, and you're not wrong, right? Because they're just going to continue to work hard.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to continue to do it, and until there is a huge problem, and it'll have to be so bad to where there's, I don't even know. I don't even know what that looks like. And it's not any different than any other service type industry. The difference is the ones that come to mind are like well-paid people.
Yeah.
Like nurses, for example, during COVID, right? There was a shortage of nurses, and so you saw their pay go up and all that kind of stuff. I'm not comparing a nurse, but you see what I'm saying.
Sure.
And it'll be sad.
Yeah.
It'd be really sad. I want to say I'm probably right there with you.
Yeah.
Because it's not gonna, he's not pushing it. He's barely sending messages out about it on X and Facebook. And when he does, he's just getting obliterated on it.
And my thought is when the S does hit the fan and like it's essentially a funding cut because funding is not being increased to keep pace with inflation and
Right.
salaries and things. So it's essentially a funding cut. So when the effects of that hit the fan, I feel like most people will probably blame leadership. They're not going to blame Austin. I think you're going to see school boards and school leadership and school administration probably take the biggest brunt because things are, balls are going to drop, things are going to fall through the cracks, not by the fault of any administrator or teacher, but just because you can't juggle
Right.
that much. It just, when stuff continues to get added to your workload because there's a shortage of workers in the field, things are going to start to get dropped. And when they do, you're going to see teachers, administrators, and school boards get blamed when they're really just doing the best they can and a dang good job with what they've got.
Well, and then you'll see the tax rates go up. Like, that's the next move. I really believe that they'll just cap all the taxes at the very top of what the schools can draw out. And then that's an even bigger issue because then you're talking about local taxes going up, which no school board that I know of wants to do that.
Right.
They're trying their best to not do that, but that's the next step.
Yeah.
Like, if you really think that the state doing nothing is the solution, well, they're going to hit your pocketbook next because we can't not have that. And that's the other thing too. I heard someone on TikTok I was watching, which again is not the greatest source, but you at least get a pulse of what people are thinking when you read, especially the comments. Was like, well, if my school fails, then I'll just go to the private school sector, which is fine. You can do that. But you're still going to have to pay school taxes.
Right.
And until that law change, it's in our Constitution, our state Constitution. So it'll be interesting to see how this all plays out. I'm not going to be Debbie Downer, as I've said that now for a third time today.
No.
But
update on rec league soccer coach talk from last week. I said on our pod last week, we recorded on Monday, and the incident with that coach happened on Saturday. So I said I wasn't going to name names or anything, just because give them more time to respond, and they did, and they made it right, and we're all good. So
good.
And if we win tomorrow and Saturday and our round one playoff game, we'll see that team in quarterfinals.
Oh, no.
I mean, but we're all good.
Maybe we'll live stream a podcast that day.
I can't be on camera when I'm on those games.
Well, club volleyball has started back up. They do pre-clinics in May, and then tryouts are in June and July. And so now you see everybody scuttling around trying to figure out what club they're going to play for. Mm-hmm. It's an interesting thing to watch. And I always tell parents all the time, like, if your kid is not playing for and there's like elite levels of club, just like there is in soccer. If you're not playing for the Mad Frog, Skyline, TAV, XL, Frisco Flyers, if you're not playing for that top team, find the club that works best for you. Mm-hmm. Make sure the coach is somewhat knowledgeable. Make sure your kid is getting touches. But if don't go pay all that money.
Yeah.
I tell people that all the time. Like, your local volleyball club, that's because there's a ton of them in our area, can do just the same job as that third or fourth or fifth team of those bigger clubs.
Yeah.
Because they're just trying to get your money to feed into those top teams, which is where they make their money.
Right.
Because the top, they don't ever put out that, this is our 7th team.
Yeah. I know, yeah.
That team is not rolling out on their Facebook page.
Yeah. I was just on a call right before you came over to record that was like talking about this time of year and things are shaking up. So like on select soccer, it's like there's some changes and everything. And because this is that time of year, they do contracts as of July 1.
Right.
And like
it's the same for volleyball.
Tryouts can officially be like after May 15th kind of thing. And so like this is kind of the time, like you're saying, same thing with soccer where everybody's kind of, if they're making a move, they're making a move now.
Right.
So we just had a kind of a call about all that fun stuff, but we're not changing anything. So
is he going to play?
Yeah.
Good. I think that's a good move.
Yeah.
There are those that will disagree with that, but it's okay.
Yeah. And like you say, like it's a good team. They're really good, but it's also a team he can get playing time on and have fun with.
Right. Well, and like for my girls, when my oldest, who played club for like 6 years, when she got to the point to where I thought, okay, maybe we could go play at one of those top clubs, we went and tried out. And then I saw the amount that they were charging. Mm-hmm. And I was like, man, this is a lot of money. Mm-hmm. You're talking 5 figures plus travel to 5 different tournaments. And we don't have that kind of money.
Yeah.
And, she could have gone and played college ball if she had wanted to, but her body just couldn't handle it. So I tell my oldest, or my middle one, who is just as skilled, but not quite as interested, hey, let's just stay here and let's see what it looks like. And then if you really decide that this is something you want to do, go play college ball somewhere or something like that, then let's go look at the next level.
Yeah, keep it in perspective, right?
But she's almost to that age. You're going into middle school, you kind of have a general idea.
Yeah.
We're still a year away from that.
And he might have designs on it, but I'm not trying to send him to the MLS. Like we're 10. And there are plenty of 10-year-olds out there who are.
Oh, for sure.
They're on, teams with that specific goal. And that's totally fine for those guys. It's just not us.
And I think as long as you keep it in perspective, as long as you and your family, this is another thing I tell people when they ask, make sure your family goal meets the club goal. Because if your goal is to go play in the MLS and that's not the club's goal, then you're going to be unhappy. And then you've wasted your money, your time.
Yeah.
And then you're just going to be angry the whole season, which is no fun either. When you're having to get up at 3:00 in the morning to travel to the other side of Fort Worth to play at a 7:30 a.m. tournament.
Or like out of state.
Right. It just makes it hard.
Or even in the state, but it's a 5-hour drive because our state's so big.
Yeah. I want to talk about something that's really local to us, and people who are not from this area are not going to understand this.
We can explain it, though.
Yeah. So we live in East Texas. We live east of Lake Ray Hubbard, okay? And we live in a valley, essentially. And I think you know where I'm going with this. And every time it rains, it floods. I've lived in this area of the state of Texas my entire life. Mm-hmm. So for 37 years. We moved here when I was 3. And it floods this time of year every year. Mm-hmm. And why they continue to build houses right next to these floodplain areas that have flooded for as long as that, for 35 plus years.
We know one neighborhood where this field, all of our years growing up, flooded. And now there's houses in it. And yeah, I saw them. They brought in a ton of dirt and everything, but man, I don't want my house. And those
You're talking about right there on 30?
Yeah. No, yeah. Where that flooded all those years and they brought in all that dirt and built all those houses. And man, like none of those people know that because they're all new. But like you want to tell them like, hey, like this used to flood like 3 times a year, like all this whole field, all of it.
And not just a little bit of water. You're talking 5, 6, 7, 10 feet sometimes.
I can remember more than once water being up over the interstate.
Correct.
It was so high. Father's Day, 2015, matter of fact.
Yes.
Over the interstate, shut down 30.
Well, and then the neighborhood that was back by the old school.
Yeah.
We have some friends that live in that neighborhood, and their houses almost got
Yes.
put into the lake. Well, it's not a lake. It's just a little creek, but
You know,
it floods.
growing up, my dad would always say, we're good because our house is on top of a hill. And sure enough, it was. When you come down the street I grew up on, you're going uphill.
Yep.
My house,
I know exactly what
my
you're talking
grandparents' house, then you start going downhill.
Right.
And it was funny when we bought this house. I was out here because we bought and we built it, and so I was out here like looking at it one day in one of the stages of building, and it started to rain. And I looked out at the end of my driveway and I saw water running to the left and water running to the right down the street, and I was like,
You're in a good spot.
"We're all right," and we are.
Yeah, in the house we currently live in, we are the high point of the neighborhood. We didn't build it, but
Yeah.
that's just where we are. But as they continue to build out this direction, it just seems like the only land that is left seems like this is not the reality, but it seems like the land that's left is a lot of floodplain.
Yeah.
The thing is, though, and again, I am not an engineer. I'm not a land engineer. I'm just looking at logic.
Right.
If that floods 3 times a year, where are you going to put that water when it comes?
Right.
Because it's got to go somewhere. And we don't have enough lakes around here, reservoirs, to push that water to. And the ones that they're trying to build keep getting pushed off.
I wish I would have made a note on our run sheet about this story because I just saw it this week, so I don't have any of the details jotted down. But in our county, there's a neighborhood suing a builder that's building in a field next to them because it's pushing a bunch of water onto their houses. And they've been there forever. And now their houses are getting flooded out.
Right.
Because this new neighborhood, which is in a field, like that's the way it is around here. It's all ag land that's turning into houses.
Correct.
That's just the way it is with everybody moving to this part of our state, into our state. And they're suing the builder, like trying to get a cease and desist, getting them to stop. Because you're just putting a bunch of concrete down. The concrete doesn't soak up water.
Correct.
And so I'm sure they've run their models and everything of whatever they needed to do. But like to your point, there comes to a point when it's like, no, you've got to leave some dirt around here to soak up the rain.
Well, and the other thing is they just keep putting the houses closer and closer to it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, between us and a little bit further east, the Twitch just pointed that out. Like there's some $500,000 homes in 20-year floodplains out there.
It's crazy.
The local school district that I work at, they get survey plans and they show us, and I'm like, man, they're about to build that subdivision. If it rains north of here, that whole neighborhood's going to flood.
Yeah.
And what are they going to do? I don't.
And you got nothing but runoff. That's the thing. It's all running off roofs of houses and streets and sidewalks.
Well, and the other thing, if you don't know about this part of Texas, is we have a really black clay.
Yeah, it's horrible.
And it doesn't soak the water up super quick. Like it runs really fast, and it can flood. Like it can be a flash flood. It's almost like the desert, honestly.
Yeah, right.
But you go a little bit further east of here, it's that sandy loam, so that soaks up the water. And I didn't know that until we moved a little bit further east, and I was like, oh, well, you don't have to have soaker hoses around your house.
No, you can go out there and walk after it rained,
right?
And like you're just walking on firm ground.
Right. And that was a whole new adventure for me.
Yeah.
But it just concerns me. I mean, it doesn't concern me enough to be like, hey, you probably should protest this or something like that. But it's just a thought. I'm like, as I'm driving to work this morning and it's still raining for the 3rd straight day, it feels like there's so much water coming down that.
Yeah, I feel like my job, what I do is risk management. And sometimes if you have bad risk management, you're looking for a report to satisfy what you want to accomplish instead of, and so I think that's when we talk about these engineering reports and like water runoff and whatever that's called in that science, where it's like, we don't want to stop the machine. We don't want to stop the building because it's bringing a lot of money in.
Right.
So how can we get this report that says it's okay so we can keep building? Because who's going to say no?
not that landowner.
Who's going to, well, even in towns and cities, like who's going to say, yeah, we're good. We're going to stop getting people in here, which is going to stop the business growth, which is going to stop everything. Who's going to say that? Like, no one's going to say that. So they're going to find engineers and reports to say that it's okay to build here.
And I think that's where it comes to the local level. Like, the cities have to say, no, you can't do that in this spot. Sorry if you bought the land already, but to point out something that the Twitch just said, they didn't know this was a geology podcast.
Man, it is everything. All right.
We are current events.
Yes.
And currently it is raining cats and dogs. And the other thing, we're gonna hop into meteorology now. I'm really worried it's gonna be a really hot summer.
Really?
Because we're in May and it hasn't even hardly hit 90. And you know what happens in August when it's not real hot in May? Mm-hmm. It's gonna be so hot.
I haven't looked at the Farmer's Almanac, but they're usually accurate.
I
like our 100-degree days and things like that.
Yeah, but I do.
I'll take all the rain right now because it's too cold to get in the lake. So this is purely selfish for me, but we're not getting in the lake right now because the water's still too cold. But we will be after Memorial Day. So like rain, all you want now. Fill the lakes up, fill the rivers up. Make sure the lake is nice and full. So when it stops raining and gets hot, we can have a full boating season all the way through Labor Day.
Did you see the Red River? By the way, the Twitch just pointed out. This is what happens when you have a history teacher and a history teacher spouse podcast. You get all kinds of fun stuff.
All kinds of fun stuff.
But did you see the Red River?
I did not, but I did get a sign up for all these notifications and for all the lakes around here. And I got a notification on Lake Texoma to be on the lookout for like debris and logs from the river, like coming into the lake. And like if you're on a boat, that's gonna be really, really bad.
Right. Okay. That's
so because the river's so full and it's picking up debris along the way, and so it's coming into Lake Texoma.
When it crested this week, or yesterday morning. I don't think I've been around a long time. I don't ever remember the Red River cresting like that.
It's usually you can just about hop and skip and walk across it.
Right.
If you ever have to be unfortunate enough to go into Oklahoma. That's what the kids always say. Like, Dad, what happened to the truck? I'm like, nothing. We just left Texas and now we're in Oklahoma.
We've established that you don't like the casinos there. Are you a fan of the Louisiana?
No.
Okay, so only Vegas.
My wife is from Oklahoma, by the way.
Okay, well, touche. One other thing that's local, and I have a poster that's going to go, or not a poster, but a picture that's going to go behind me. Be nice to people. I went into Starbucks. My wife orders online, so I'll run in there to pick up the Starbucks for her. And this poor girl, she was just crying because the lady in front of me had just ripped her because they had not made her coffee correct. They had put caramel sauce instead of caramel sprinkles.
Oh.
Didn't even know there was a difference, if I'm being honest.
I can't believe that person.
So they gave that. I took that lady's coffee. She stormed out of there. I was like, hey, what's going to happen to that? She was like, well, we just got to throw it away if somebody doesn't take it in 15 minutes. I'm like, I'll take it. I was like, and I'm so sorry that lady was such a jerk to you.
Two thoughts. When you deal with food service people, most of the time you're dealing with kids or young people. Like, keep that in mind. Okay. Plus, like, what I want to say to you, if that's you, if you're listening to our podcast right now, you're probably not.
She's definitely not tuning into the Cigar Politico.
What happens when something bad actually goes wrong?
That's what I was thinking.
When a real something goes bad in your life, how do you react to that? If you storm out and stomp your feet and make a girl cry over getting the wrong type of caramel on your coffee, like, I'd hate to be around you if like something tragic actually happens to you.
First world problem. And then here's the other thing you need to be nice to. Be nice to teachers on duty when it's raining, on car duty. Don't honk your horn at them.
Honk your horn at them.
I thank God it wasn't me. I probably would have lost my job, but I probably would have thrown something at them. Like, don't honk your horn. These poor elementary teachers are standing out in the rain.
Yes.
Most of the time they don't have an umbrella because, it's lightning and it's a violation of some kind of law, I'm sure. But it's also blowing 900 miles an hour. Be nice to people. Mm-hmm. It's not hard to be nice. It's not hard.
It isn't.
But,
Trump's not taking a third term, by the way. I know that comes as a shock. Breaking news. You heard it here last. Trump is not going to pursue a third term. Liberal minds explode.
I did see that he
Just-
did put some names out there, though.
Yeah.
That's what I took from that. I never for a moment thought he was going to run for a third term,
We
to be
talked about
perfectly
it.
clear. First off, it's against the Constitution,
Yes.
so he can't.
He can't. And keep in mind, like, Trump doesn't decide what goes on a ballot. Remember when Colorado was trying to keep him off of their ballot in Colorado because of the January
Yes.
6th stuff? Like, each state determines who's on their ballot.
Right.
So even if all the Republican-controlled states put Trump on their ballot, he won Democrat-controlled states.
Right.
And you have to be able to win the presidency. So
Correct.
never would have happened. Never would have stood up. And, like, I kind of get on Bill. We've sang some praises to Bill Maher lately because he's been very rational as a liberal. But he was back on this past week saying, you know, I told you first that when he first got elected that he wasn't going to leave. He
Right.
wasn't going to leave the White House. And then they're using, like, his contesting the election as proof of that. I'm like, no. Like, I'm going to call it exactly how it was. He used legal means to contest the election as much as he could. But you know what? On January 20th, 2021, he was in Air Force One flying to Florida.
Correct.
Nobody had to shove him onto that airplane. He got on the plane, flew out of Washington, and went to Florida. Like, it was all dumb talk to begin with. But he egged it on, you know, just being who he is. So I think Susie Wiles and some others came up to him and said, listen, you've got to just come out. I don't know when you're going to do it. Pick an interview. At some point, you've got to just come out and put this to bed and say you're not going to do it. So he did. And threw out some names too, which is good.
I think we had the whole saying Biden doing Biden things. This is just Trump doing Trump things.
Yes.
And him throwing out Marco Rubio and J.D. Vance as a potential follow-up to him, I think that was a great thing. That was a great move for the party.
I wonder how DeSantis feels about it.
I don't think he has a problem with it. Hold on. I don't want to put my thoughts. I don't have a problem with him not putting DeSantis in the thing because he doesn't work directly for Trump.
Sure.
So right now he's just a governor of the great state of Florida. So it would be no different than like Abbott or something like that.
He's about to be out, though. You know, his wife's running.
Who
DeSantis' wife.
is running for what?
Governor of Florida. Well, she will because he's done after
Oh,
this
his term limits?
Yeah. A couple other changes, shakeups in the Trump White House. Mike Waltz is out.
We called it.
I did. And when you think about it, we're what? A little less than 2 months away from when he did the Telegram chat thing.
Yeah.
Like, Trump sussed it out and promoted him because he's going to be UN ambassador.
Boy, does he work in education? Does he work in education or what?
Yeah.
You're not good at your job. We're just going to promote you. Educational joke there for you.
Yeah.
We talked about dad jokes. That's a teacher joke.
So it's like, you have been promoted.
What is his new? I knew he was promoted, but what was it again?
It'll be UN ambassador. He's got to be confirmed, though, by the Senate. And I don't know, like, these senators may be like this guy. Like, as UN ambassador, he's still going to have access to privileged information and classified information and national security type information. So
I don't know if I said it on here or if I thought it outside of the podcast, but I'm really glad that Hegseth was kind of cleared of all this.
Yeah.
Because I really like that guy
He's
in the
good.
role that he's playing. I really like it.
I like him getting down with the troops.
I do too, and that's so important. Like troop morale, because if stuff does hit the fan, we need morale to be high.
Yeah, I think those guys will fight for him.
And if you have talked to anybody in the military over the last 8 years, even in Trump's first term, morale was very low.
Yeah.
Very low, and that's not a good thing. And I've even noticed over the last, the numbers haven't come out yet because they don't come out until after graduation and things like that, towards the middle of the summer of like new recruits. But I would be willing to bet it'll be higher if I bet on that kind of stuff. I'll be willing to bet it was higher.
Yeah.
But talking about Trump doing Trump things, you want to go to Alcatraz?
We need two different charts. We talked about we need our chart over here about like where we are on the spectrum of left to right on different topics. We need a Trump chart, and we're going to do this. I don't know how long it'll take, but we're going to get these going because we also need a Trump chart of like crazy, never going to happen. Trump just says it to like, oh, maybe. And I think Alcatraz is, maybe.
No way.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
no way he's going to open that. No way. It hasn't been open since the 1960s. And they shut it. Well, they shut it down because it was full of lead paint.
Yes. That's why the argument is that it would have to be completely razed, like completely torn down and rebuilt. And then there's some people like, no, the walls are still good. We just have to completely gut it and redo it. I think that's a maybe. I give it more than 50%.
I'm 0.01%.
It will depend on what it cost. Now, if they get a cost study back and they're like, listen, we could build 5 brand new prisons, like for what it would cost to bring Alcatraz up to date, then probably won't happen.
I really feel like Sean Connery and Nicolas Cage had a part in this.
He's dead, but
Sean Connery is?
yes.
Oh, I did not know that.
How did, man?
I missed that one.
Hmm.
It's a great joke right there, though. You must have missed it.
Yeah.
You know The Rock, the movie.
Yes,
It's a great movie.
He must have missed it. He went back. But yeah, I give it a chance of happening.
I don't think so, man.
It's a great idea, though.
It's a great
out in the middle of cold water, surrounded by sharks. I mean, that's a good prison.
He just needs a rowboat to get out of there. That's all it took Nicolas Cage.
It's true. Some people are saying that one of the reasons it was shut down was because it was too hard to get supplies to and from it. And I'm like, I don't know about that. Like, we had boats in '63.
I bet it was a little more difficult than it would be now. I mean, it wouldn't be very difficult now.
Yeah.
But that would not be the reason that Trump would not open that back up. The whole reason he wouldn't open back up is because it costs too much.
Right.
You can just build something brand new in the middle of Iowa.
Yeah.
It's the same. You put some drones up, you would probably have less cause for that. Hey, you know who's a man of the people, especially white guys? Tim Walz.
I've got that story. I've got to read some stuff from it.
Okay. I'll let you get it up. But when he said, okay, Trump doing Trump things, Biden doing Biden things, Tim Walz doing Tim Walz things. That dude's crazy.
Clueless is what he is.
He has no idea.
This is Washington Examiner. Pretty right of center publication.
Right.
Just to give it what you want to hear. The former vice presidential candidate recently told an audience at Harvard's Kennedy School that former VP Kamala Harris chose him as a running mate because of his uncanny ability to connect with the average Caucasian cisgendered dude. It's a lot of words.
What is this?
Just a white guy. Straight white guy.
Okay. That's what cisgender.
You're straight. His quote, "I could code talk to white guys watching football, fixing their truck." Did you see in the campaign him like talking about his old truck and stuff? That dude has not turned a wrench a day in his life. And if he has, so be it. No one thinks that guy has turned a wrench a day in his life on either side. Fixing their trucks, he explained, "I was the permission structure."
The permission?
This is his quote. "I was the permission structure to say, look, you can do this, white guy S, and vote for this VP." It's true. This is the article now saying it's true because all the fellas are talking about permission structures these days. Like, Lord. What he's essentially saying. Alas, the white guy whisperer didn't really help the Democratic Party ticket at all in 2024. Part of the problem one imagines is that the governor of Minnesota has an utterly deluded conception of himself as the embodiment of a working class male. Oh my gosh. Like,
the Twitch brings up he couldn't even hold a shotgun correctly, and he's not wrong.
That's true. That is true too. So we talked about this a little bit before it even came out as a story. We talked about this back in the campaign that he was picked for that reason. We were speculating and guessing. And I don't have any problem with that. Like, I know lots of VP candidates are picked for whatever state they're in or a certain demographic they can get, like, all day long, 100%. I mean, Biden picked VP Harris for that reason. So I got no problem with that. Republicans and Democrats have done that as long as we've had elections. But to say this guy is going to win us the white guy vote, like, did you talk to any white guys to see?
I mean, it's pretty bold too. Right?
Who did he say he could beat oh yeah, he said he could beat any Republican in a fight. And then there was that Tennessee congressman who's a former wrestler who's like, I'm your Huckleberry. They got quiet real quick. Gosh, I would go in person. I would buy a plane ticket and a ticket to see Tim Walz get destroyed by some big white Republican congressman. Which I'm not advocating for violence. That's what Tim Walz said he wanted to do. He said he could beat anyone in a fight. No one thinks that, buddy. Man. We have talked about the Democrats being clueless, but dadgum, that is a dang good example of it right there.
So this is not on our run sheet, but I want to throw this out there. They still haven't pushed anybody out yet. I know we talked about this like 3 weeks ago. I just keep waiting for someone to come to the forefront. Mm-hmm. And I know we've talked about that they probably are just waiting, which is fine. That's fine.
I think by the summer, though, you've got to do it.
We're in the summer.
Yeah, by the summer, you have to have that person identified because you have midterms next year. You got to have somebody leading the party. I don't know.
And I keep waiting for the wild card,
But also think about like what we were just talking about a minute ago with like Trump. Think about the stable the Republicans have. Like whether you are a Republican, conservative, or a Democrat or a liberal, like you can at least just take a step back and look at both sides and be like, dadgum. The Republicans have J.D. Vance. They have Marco Rubio. They have Ron DeSantis. They have Nikki Haley, maybe. I don't know.
Tulsi Gabbard.
Like, so many people. And
they're young.
Yes. And the Democrats have probably Gavin Newsom.
AOC.
Yes.
Bernie.
I think Bernie will run again.
No. But I think he'll be the face.
You think he'll throw his weight behind AOC?
Yeah, I think so. As of right now.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But I'm not married to that idea.
I don't mean this in a mean way, but I feel like just from what I have consumed from AOC, she'll have a similar campaign to VP Harris. Like, she has a lot of one-offs and, like, little quips and things she can say and sound sassy and smart. She's not bright. Like, when she goes to talk about issues.
Right.
You know, you can tell, like, when she sits down to talk about issues, my impression anyway, that she's out of her league. And that's not a statement about anybody being a Democrat or a liberal, because there are plenty of Democrats and liberals. Like we've talked about, you know, what I've seen from Gavin Newsom has been sharp, but when she talks about issues, there's a lot lacking there for substance, just from the outside looking in.
Well, I also think it comes down to life experience. I rewatched J.D. Vance. Hold on, I gotta take a drink of water. I rewatched J.D. Vance's the documentary of his book, or the movie about his book.
Yeah, Hillbillyology.
And I realize that there's a lot of Hollywood, but I also realize it's pretty accurate. When you have a conversation with a person like J.D. Vance, there's that life experience that goes into it. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure you've seen this in like your world. I'll talk about myself. I won't throw you into this, but like my life experience before I became a teacher makes me a better teacher. J.D. Vance's life experience prior to becoming a politician makes him a better politician because he can relate. Now, Trump kind of throws a kink in that, but he's a businessman.
Right.
So there's a little bit of a difference there. He's not a lifelong politician. AOC is a lifelong politician. And I want to throw one more name out there because I've kind of seen him pop up every now and then, and now I'm seeing his bumper stickers again, but Beto O'Rourke.
Really?
Yeah, I've seen two. I saw two today. Now, it may be I'm looking for them, and they're just old. But he's on the socials again. And so it's a name that's, you know, he kind of lost his, when you're in Texas and you're running for Texas and you're going against the Second Amendment, not a good fall there. That was the fall of his campaign.
But it came within 3 points.
Yes, he did.
Of Cruz.
The social says Amy
Klobuchar
would be a good pick for the Democrats.
Yeah, except I just got on her last week for jumping on the Kilmar Abreu Garcia bandwagon.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
No. It wasn't him. It was the judge who let the illegal immigrant out of the court.
Yes,
She was like, this is an affront to checks and balances whenever a judge gets arrested.
Yeah.
But prior to that, I did say that she had been very rational. And as a difference to AOC and as a female, she has substance. When she speaks about issues, I don't agree with what she's saying, but she knows what she's talking about from her point of view. And from a Democrat, from a liberal point of view, she speaks about it very well. So, yeah, she would be.
We forgot about Ted Cruz, by the way. The Twitch brought up Ted Cruz.
I don't think he'll run.
I don't think he'll run either, but...
He's a future Supreme Court justice.
Oh.
Yeah, 100%. You heard it here first.
Hadn't thought about that, but you're probably right.
If Trump gets to name another one, I don't know.
Because he's young?
He's young and he's sharp.
Yeah.
Conservative, constitutionalist.
Yeah. It's a good one. Hadn't thought about that.
And I do feel like, and I'm not agreeing with this. I'm just saying, I'm trying to dive into Trump's brain for a second. And I feel like Trump, even though he and Ted sparred quite a bit because Ted ran for president in the primaries against Trump, he is the senator who stood up, with the other congressmen to protest or contest the election.
Right.
Before everything went to crap.
Right.
So he's in his, Texas face mask, because remember, this is 2021.
Right.
He stood up on that day and did that for Trump, to contest it from the state of Texas. So I do feel like Trump has him kind of in the back of his mind as somebody that he owes a position to, but I think he's a future Supreme Court justice.
I need to think about that a little bit more, but I think you're probably right.
He hasn't been a judge. Maybe he's got to be on the federal bench first. He doesn't have to be, like it's not a rule, but that may be quite the jump to SCOTUS. I don't know.
If I could pick one position in that level of federal government, that's the position I would pick to go to.
Yeah.
Because I think that one you have the most power, but people don't know. They don't understand how much power they have.
Yes.
Like, people think the president has a lot of power, but in all reality, they're just the president is just a figurehead. There's not a whole lot of, you can sway, but you don't have real power.
It makes me wonder with, the Republicans having the Senate currently, if Alito will go ahead and step down. Clarence Thomas is not going to. He's going to die in office. Which he's not young, but so that could happen. But I think if anyone, it could be Alito, and Ted Cruz would be a match-for-match replacement for Alito, because Alito is such a strict constitutionalist. Right. So it'd be kind of the same judge coming on the court as going off.
The Twitch will like that, by the way.
So that's my thought on that. But speaking of Kilmar Abreu Garcia, the Democrats have kind of changed their tune a little bit on this guy, from sending senators and congressmen down to El Salvador to drink drinks with him on the beach and talk about how, horrible it was what Trump did to him. Now they've kind of stopped talking about him, because not only weeks ago it came out that he was a wife beater, but now his job in MS-13 was he was helping out with child trafficking and sex trafficking. So they've stopped talking about him as kind of their poster boy. Now they're just talking about due process, but it is interesting that he was the poster boy and just wronged by everyone and should have never been kicked out of the country. But here's the thing. He was an illegal immigrant. He was here on an asylum plea. But was he asking for asylum because of the government? No. The government wasn't after him in El Salvador. Rival gangs were after him in El Salvador. That's why he wanted asylum in the United States and came here illegally to try to get that. And you cannot, just for the legal beagles out there, just because you walk in the door legally and say, I want asylum, doesn't mean you're not still here illegally.
Correct. There's been quite the scuttlebutt on socials about due process. And what does that mean? Mm-hmm. Who can receive due process and things like that.
And I think it's important to note that Trump has so far deported fewer people than any of his previous presidents have, but he's getting a lot of attention. He is doing it under the Alien Enemies Act, and people like to bring up that hasn't been used in a long time, and that's an old law, but so are a lot of our, the Bill of Rights are pretty old too. Which is what Charlie Kirk says. Like, just because it's an old law doesn't mean it's not a
Doesn't
good
mean
one.
it's not a law,
you know?
right?
And so that's why the people you see being deported are criminals and gang members. It's not just anybody.
And I think we talked about this a little bit early in the podcast about, how the construction workers might be a little bit concerned if they're here illegally.
Did you hear that side note, people were canceling Cinco de Mayo parties for fear of ICE raids?
Shut up. No, I didn't hear that.
That was on local news.
Jesus. No. I think if you're here illegally and you're breaking the law, it's like what, on the movie Liar Liar, Jim Carrey, he used to say, "Stop breaking the law."
Yeah.
I'm not going to do the whole thing because last time I quoted something, we got flagged.
Got dinged, yeah.
But I stop breaking the law. If you don't want to be in trouble, don't break the law.
Yeah. I have a friend who is an attorney, and they're like my age, and when they're coming up through law school, they said, the rule is you can only do one illegal thing. If you're doing two illegal things, you're going to get in trouble. It's like,
right.
If you have weed in your car, that's one illegal thing.
Don't speed.
If you're speeding and you have weed in your car, that's when you're going to get in trouble. So it's like, you're here illegally, don't do anything else illegal, and you're probably going to stay off the radar. But if you're here illegally and beating your wife and trafficking children, you're probably going to be sent back to El
Salvador.
Salvador.
Say that was a Trump gaffe. He said that he had MS-13 tattooed on his hands, and that was actually an AI generated thing.
Yeah.
So I mean,
but he was a part of MS-13.
He was a part of MS-13.
Just
So that was a little gaffe on Trump's part.
Speaking of Trump AI generated images,
boy. Okay, did you see the Texas Senate passed a bill where they can no longer it can't.
Did it pass?
It's in the House, I think.
It's in the House. I don't think it's passed, but it's not Justin Burrows. Dade Phelan. Man, they're going to hate that I got them two mixed up. Dade Phelan, former Speaker of the House, ousted, and now it is Justin Burrows, brought that bill up, which is a horrible bill. Like, you cannot enforce that bill. It's one of those things, it's a good idea, but maybe it's a good idea.
So why don't you explain what we're talking about?
So it essentially leaves the door open saying that you cannot make any representation like using AI that's not like I can't make an AI. I have AI generated headshots. The funny ones, not like serious ones.
I know
like the funny ones you can do like that is actually against the law. Now, the law is useless because here's the thing. If someone uses anything to defame you, you already have recourse against them under the current law.
Correct.
And so the reason Dade Phelan doesn't like this and he is proposing this law is because that was used against him in his own House race for the Texas House.
Right.
And so he's like, I want to get you now. I'm going to make a law where you can't do this anymore. But it's impossible to enforce. And like anybody who creates AI generated images would be in violation of this law.
I think the amendment it has to be told that it's an AI generated image. But it's like Trump and the Pope. Have you seen that one? Trump dressed as the Pope.
That's what I was talking about.
Like, that's so obviously AI generated.
He also did a Star Wars one.
I saw that one too. It was fantastic.
I know, but all them Star Wars nerds are saying, "Oh, he's got a red lightsaber. It means he's a bad guy." Like,
but is he? Is Darth Vader the enemy, or is he the hero?
Darth Vader didn't have a red lightsaber.
He did too.
Did he?
Yeah,
he did.
The Twitch will
right.
The Twitch will let us know. That's what he kills. That's what he kills Obi-Wan Kenobi with. And
we just watched
the Star Wars movie.
My kids, I tell you what, I need to do a better job as a parent. My kids, their favorite one is the Phantom Menace.
Is that what Jar Jar Binks?
Yes.
I judge you for that.
Worst one.
I judge you for that.
I've tried to tell them. So that's what we watched on May the 4th. And Darth Maul has a red lightsaber, the double.
Yeah.
And so did Kylo Ren. So anyway, they're making a big deal about Trump having a red lightsaber. I'm like, no, I think it's just red's kind of his color. If you've seen the hats that he likes,
Yeah.
But they're like making a big
and he
deal.
always wears a red tie.
Yeah, most of the time, yeah.
But I think that's hilarious.
Trump is not saying he wants to be the Pope.
But we also can't go back to the era of no comedy.
Yes.
Right, we can't go back to that because we've had that for the last 8 years, and it was not fun.
Yeah.
Because some things are funny.
I think if you see Trump in AI as the Pope and you're a liberal Catholic, you really don't like that a lot. I think if you're a conservative Catholic, you might think it's funny and just keep scrolling. I thought it was funny. I'm not a Catholic.
But I think it's hilarious. Speaking of the Pope, the conclave
Tomorrow.
gets together tomorrow.
Yeah, which, they're several hours ahead of us. So, like in the morning, they start in the afternoon,
Yeah.
but that'll be our morning. So,
There's no smoke at this point, right?
not until they have a vote,
Not until they have a vote.
which is every day.
Oh.
So, you'll see black smoke or white smoke.
And
This
it's
is what I
17
remember.
days?
Until they find one.
Oh, okay. No, it was 17 days from the death to where the conclave had to start.
Something like that. Yeah.
Gotcha.
From what I remember, there's smoke every day. And black is no pope. White is pope. So, did you know, something I didn't know, though, is that the chimney's not there all the time. They have to come install it. So they had to come put a chimney on the Sistine Chapel.
Why would they do that?
Did you watch the Conclave movie?
I got a little bit through it because I was going to show it in class, but then I thought, you know what, this is kind of boring.
No. Well, maybe your age would be fine. There's a big twist at the end.
I couldn't watch it all. I fell asleep.
I did not. I thought it was very interesting.
It was very interesting, but at the same time, I'm showing this to high school kids.
Oh, yeah.
And they're not going to be interested in that unless they're Catholic.
No, it is slow, and like things take time to develop, and it all takes place. Most all of it takes place inside the Sistine Chapel, so it's not like,
Yeah, But I said I didn't like it. It was just slow, and I was not in a mental state to be able to focus in and like follow the dialogue back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
And I was tired, and so I fell asleep.
Yeah.
But it wasn't a bad movie. I'm just not going to show it to them because they're not going to be interested in it.
Staying on we talked a lot about Texas House bills. So the AI one, I don't think that's going anywhere. I hope it's not. I don't think you can enforce it. And I think there's already laws on the books that give you recourse if that happens to you. But there's another one that affects banks. It really affects everybody. It's another one of these we're going to get a shirt that says Ivory Tower Conservatism, because it's another one of those Ivory Tower conservative ideas that sounds good, but in practice is horrible. And there's this bill passed to the House with an amendment that helps a bunch, but that Texas create its own gold, silver currency. So the Texas Gold Bullion Depository will mint real money that you can use in Texas as money, but it's gold. So it's a certain fraction of a troy ounce, and so its value changes, which is one of the reasons it's stupid. Because if you think this is awesome, Texas is going to have its own money and it's going to be gold, because there's all those people out there who are like, we need to go back to the gold standard, and we talked about that on a podcast and why that was a dumb idea, in my opinion. Here's one of the reasons that's a dumb idea, because like you have some gold coins in your pocket, your Texas, whatever they're going to be called, they'll name them after founders. It'll be the Travis and the, stuff like that.
Sam Houston.
Yeah, for sure. You don't know how much money you have. How much money you have is what the price of gold is that day. And just because you have Texas money doesn't mean it's not going to be taxed by the IRS. And the IRS considers gold a commodity. So every time you spend gold, you're subject to capital gains tax.
That sounds like a terrible idea.
It's a terrible idea. Here's another reason that it's also a terrible idea that's probably not going to resonate as much as the first two, which, just state them again, just to recap. Number one, you never know how much money you have because it changes every day based on the price of gold. Number two, why it's a bad idea is you're going to pay capital gains tax every time you spend it, because the IRS considers it a commodity, and you're going to keep paying taxes to the IRS, even if it's Texas money. Number three is that any money that it creates a depository institution, like a bank, a gold bank basically in the state, meaning that people would pull their money out of local community banks and put them in this gold depository bank. The gold depository bank is not going to make loans to small businesses and ags and farmers throughout our state. It's just a depository institution. So you're taking money out of local community banks that make loans to small businesses and farmers all throughout our state, and you reduce the capability of community banks to make loans to those people.
Yeah, that's dumb.
Another bad idea. That third reason is probably actually the most detrimental to the state as a whole.
Right.
The other two are more individual issues. But this dadgum thing passed. However, Representative Green, who is a Democrat, did get an amendment passed like really really high, good numbers on the passage, that said that the state first has to determine if they legally can make their own currency to compete with the dollar before they can create this. So it passed the House with that amendment. So it's saying that if this thing ever passes and gets signed by Abbott, the first thing the state has to do is go figure out the constitutionality of a state creating its own currency, which there is case law against, saying it's not constitutional. So that's kind of a help there. But there's also, of course, like with everything, a similar bill in the Senate that's not going anywhere. It's in committee and has never been called up for a hearing. So hopefully this thing just dies and goes away.
That sounds like
it's a horrible idea.
So like if we're going on our constitutionality litmus test over here, that sounds like an issue of federalism.
Yeah.
I don't think that passes the constitutionality litmus test.
Mm-mm.
The Twitch says that gives us a secession. What did they say? Sounds like secession fixes that problem.
Yeah.
I mean,
if Texas does secede from the Union, then yes, we can have
that.
Money.
We can have our own
Let's
money.
just not have it tied to the gold standard, please.
I'm not a big secessionist guy, so I love Texas. I will never leave the state.
It's a fun thing to talk about.
It's a fun thing to talk about, and it's a great when you're talking to your Texas buddies.
Yes.
But not the greatest idea. Because, like, they're like, oh, we have the biggest military base in the world. Well, guess who owns that? Not Texas.
Yeah. That'll be very interesting.
The other House bill that kind of caught my, other than the educational ones, that's always at the top of my list. This is kind of education, I guess, is a ban on social media for minors.
Yes.
It
passed the House.
It did it.
Yes.
I haven't followed up on it today or this week. Have a couple thoughts on this. We have kids, both of us have kids in this range that affects this. The policy in our household has kind of been keep it away as long as possible. What that looked like was about 15-ish. About 15. I don't really care what their friends have.
Right.
Don't care.
Mm-hmm.
But when it starts to affect like communication within their groups,
mm-hmm.
That's when we kind of gave in a little bit. Also, I think that kind of takes away the whole being a parent. Because, I mean, your job as a parent is to manage your children.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're saying, okay, you can't have it until you're 18 or 16 or whatever they're going to say, you're kind of taking that away from the ability of a parent, right? I mean, I'm not dying on that hill, but what I am saying is be a parent. Tell your kids no.
Yes, but, and here's my but to it,
Hold
I don't have a problem with the state saying that 15-year-olds
Hold on. The Twitch says that's why we took down the Texas flag. No, that is not why we took down the Texas flag.
Why did we take down the Texas flag?
I don't know. We took down the Texas flag because we got an LBJ.
I know why we did it, but what's the Twitch saying why we did it?
Because we're not secessionist.
Oh.
Just for that, the Texas flag is going back up next week.
It's right there.
Where is it?
It's right here.
It's always close.
It's always close.
And the Twitch knows that the Six Flags of Texas waves in my classroom.
Yeah.
All 6 of them.
It's just right there. It's not on the ground either. I know you can't see what's below it, but it's not on the ground.
Yes, we are being defensive because we are Texans first. But I am not a secessionist.
No.
Anyways.
But I don't think I have a problem with the state saying that a 15-year-old can't go buy beer. And I feel like what this law is saying is that social media can be just as dangerous to a kid's health, albeit mental health, as drugs and alcohol.
Yeah. Okay.
And responsibility in driving. So a couple things that it does is it would require age verification. And that's not to say that 15-year-olds can't go and find a way to buy beer, which I'm sure 15-year-olds will be able to find a way to get around it and have it create a social media account. Like there's always going to be ways around that. But it also there's a provision that allows parents to request and the social media companies have to follow to have those accounts deleted.
I did see that.
Because it would be only future acting, right? If it goes into effect. So all these kids that already have social accounts, the parents can request from these, from all the social media platforms that you delete this account, and they would have to.
Social media is an animal of itself. it's so hard to manage as a parent. Like as a parent, it is dang near impossible. Once they're on it, it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard. And being an educator and having kids, social media is rough. And I don't know if you've dealt with that at all.
Our oldest, yes, she's 17. There's one platform she's allowed to be on. I'm not even going to name it. It doesn't matter. But we are on it. We monitor it. There's apps on our phone that monitor activity. And I'm not saying that all those things are perfect. But because at the end of the day, we don't just rely on those controls to be parents for her.
Correct.
Like we have conversations with her. And if I ever saw, and we talked about this when she got on it, like if I ever get a sense that what she's seeing on that is causing her to feel bad about herself, it's dead. I don't care if I have to throw your phone in a blender, it's gone. And so we keep a close eye on it. And I think that's where, the parenting comes in. But, you got to know your kids, and you got to know if they're responsible enough and mature enough at that age to have that.
I just don't think that a kid is ever mature enough. Adults aren't mature enough for social media.
That's the truth.
It's adapting so quickly to your algorithm, to what you want to watch. Mm-hmm. And like right now, okay, so this is a little glimpse into my world. I have been laughing at the babies of AI of the comedians. Have you seen this? So like now my algorithm is like every other video is that. And like I'll think it's funny for a while and I'll continue to laugh at it. But like after a while I'm like, ugh, this is kind of getting old.
Yeah.
But a teenager doesn't recognize that.
Mm-hmm.
An undeveloped brain doesn't recognize what's happening to them. And so like if for example you watch the car crash that happened in Los Angeles of the high speed chase. Mm-hmm. Like I watched that a couple of times. I was like, man, this is just wild.
Yeah.
Then I saw car crashes for 3 or 4 hours. And I'm like, man, I don't want to see this. So I just shut it off and just stopped watching and my algorithm changed. But it just can send you down a very dark, dark hole. Like Fire Nico is on all your X. That's all you see.
Yeah, I don't see any of that.
I see all of it.
It's not in my algorithm. But, here's a statement that we won't say too often on the podcast probably is it makes us just like China because China doesn't allow their kids to be on social media.
Correct. And this is also something I'm not going to say is not a bad idea. Mm-mm. The Twitch brings up, just like with alcohol, the guardianship can allow, hold on, let me read it. It's hard. It's so small. It says the legal minor to drink within the sight of their guardian. What's the social media workaround? Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm assuming you could probably approve it.
I don't know. The thing is though, is like if they're allowed to drink in your presence, like you're not always in their presence when they have social media.
Right. If
they have to come sit next to you to use their social media, okay.
They're not going to do that.
But it's on their phone.
It's just, it's very, I just don't know how you manage it. And it's already hard enough to manage it when you are in control with the apps and things like that. I mean, I don't know which one you use, but I mean, our daughters used to be just attached to ours. Mm-hmm. And then if she got a notification, we got the notification, which is annoying.
It is.
It's annoying because 99.99999% of the time, I didn't even look at it because it didn't even catch my eye. But the one time that it did catch my eye, we had to handle it.
Right.
And that's an uncomfortable conversation, by the way, when you're having to call a parent. Like I'm having to call a parent of a child whose parent is not monitoring their social media. Like, hey, this is what was just sent.
Yep.
If you don't handle it, I'm going to have to get the police involved. Mm-hmm. And it was handled, but that's two mature adults having a conversation and that's uncomfortable.
And if you're listening to this and you're like, I need to do this, and like, I want to know what apps they're talking about, I'll tell you the most effective way to do this is not a third-party app. The most effective way to do this is to get an old phone. Doesn't have to have cellular because you just put it on Wi-Fi, put all your kids' accounts on that phone. So like your phone isn't getting the notifications, but you have a separate phone over there that's logged into their accounts that you can go pull up everything because it's going to show up in both places.
Right. When we first got our oldest a phone, their text messages, we had that set up to where their texts came to our phones. Mm-hmm. Not to our phones, but to that old cell phone that we
And
had.
they can delete them and stuff like that. Like there's always a workaround, but that's, parenting is hard. Just like we said last week.
Raising children is hard. Having them is also hard.
It's also hard.
But not for us.
Less hard for us.
But raising them is very difficult.
Yeah, challenging.
And it's so odd, the different transitions. Like they always say like when you get out of diapers, it's going to be so much easier. In a way,
it's not. I tell everyone this as well. Having young ones all the way to older ones, it's not less challenging. It's just different.
So the Twitch brings up: can schools prosecute a minor if they make social media, or discipline them if they make social media illegal? So, for example, if you bring in a cigarette to school, it's illegal. You're not supposed to have it. They can discipline you for
get
that.
Involved if they saw you on Instagram or whatever. I don't think they're getting in that game.
But they don't have a choice.
I mean,
I guess my overall thing is now we're starting, like when you start opening that Pandora's box, it's a slippery slope. There's a lot of things that are slippery slopes, and if you open it, it just makes it.
Yeah.
To me, if you're a parent, be a parent.
I feel like at the end of the day, just to tie a bow on this, the House bill that got passed paints with a very broad brush.
Right.
Kind of like that AI bill we were talking about, and I don't think it goes anywhere because of that.
Right.
I think if it was more targeted, and I don't know how you would make it more targeted, I just think it's a very, like, all social media is banned for all minors. Like, that's a very broad brush.
Yeah.
And
then like, what do they even consider social media, right? Because I had no idea that you could message people through Pinterest until it was brought to my attention. Like, hey, your kid can receive messages through Pinterest, and that didn't have anything to do with my kid. It was something else, but I had no idea that could even happen. And so then there's 50,000 different social medias that they use. At what point is a messaging app considered to be social media? Sure. I know it is, but you see what I'm saying?
They'll define it. And honestly, one of the things, I haven't read a whole bunch of laws in other states, but one of the things I like about Texas laws is they're pretty straightforward. You can go pull up a Texas law and you can kind of read it, and it's got some paragraphs, and it's like, okay, like I understand what this is saying. And this is like a one pager. So is the AI bill. Like it's do this.
You know what bills are not one page? Education bills. Yeah. That one was like 145 pages.
That's true.
So many pages.
True.
We haven't talked about the tariffs a ton. He seems to have backed off a bit in certain areas.
I just thought it was interesting. So a couple car manufacturers came out this week and revised their annual outlooks based on the tariffs. So Ford is the one in the news because they scrapped their financial outlook, just like scrapped it and said there'll be a $2.5 billion impact from the Trump tariffs on the auto sector. However, they said they aimed to offset about $1 billion of that, so a net $1.5 billion through certain actions like how they import parts. I mean, I saw a news story this past week how Airbus delivered a new plane that's made in France. Airbus is from France to Japan first, and had its first commercial flight out of France, although it was an American carrier, and so it doesn't get tariffed because of that.
Oh.
Because it began its operation in Japan, but then it can fly in the U.S. all it wants to.
Okay.
So like manufacturers will find workarounds, just like kids and using social media. But the one that really stuck out to me was GM. This is the quote. GM last week abandoned its 2025 financial outlook and said tariffs would reduce its profit by $4 billion to $5 billion. That means their original 2025 outlook said they're going to have $9 billion in profit, and now they're going to have $5 billion. That's a lot. That's cutting your profit in half and cutting $4 billion off your profit.
Okay, hold on.
That affects everybody.
So are you worried about the profit, or are you worried about...
I'm worried about people not getting raises, not getting bonuses, people getting laid off.
That's still a lot of profit, though, man.
That's a lot.
That's a lot of profit.
Yeah, but people get paid on profits, and you hire new people on profits, and you invest in new machines and factories and capital on profits, and maybe they'll make the transition, move more manufacturing here.
Here's my
But
prediction of what's going to happen with the tariffs.
that's just a lot.
It is a lot.
for
It
one
is a
year.
lot. It is a
And
lot.
if you are an employee of GM who is expecting a raise or expecting a bonus, which I'm sure a lot of them are, like your profit number is what determines that.
Okay.
So, though there are workers, I assume the article didn't say this. I just kind of know how business works. That will get less of a raise, less of a bonus, maybe not a bonus, because profits were essentially cut in half.
I think
It's a big deal.
I know it's a big deal, but that's a lot of money.
I'm not against tariffs, TikTok boy. Like, I understand.
Cartel MAGA.
We have
Or MAGA cartel.
MAGA cartel. We have talked at length about we've got to do something. Like, our national debt is an actual problem. It's not something off in the ether we don't have to actually worry about. And the tariffs are one piece of the solution to that. And we've also talked at length that they are the long game, and like it's going to take time and a painful amount of time for this to turn around and work. But cutting your anticipated profit from $9 billion to $5 billion
that just seems like a lot of money.
Is a big deal for
both
a company
ways.
that employs a lot of people.
That's a lot of money all the way around. It's a lot of money to lose in terms of profit margins. But $4 billion or $5 billion is still a lot of money as well.
Yeah.
I think it goes back to what, and this is how my brain works, and I know our brains are different in this way. Like, the stock market has got, and I know you explained it to me a couple of episodes ago, and that made sense. So you're going to see double and double. I get that. But $4 billion is still a lot. And $5 billion is still a lot. That profit margin is not zero. So that means that they're clearing.
But they weren't just going to sit it in the bank and like
Scrooge, I understand
Scrooge McDuck jump into the vault and swim in it.
That would be awesome, wouldn't it?
Except he was always jumping into coins, and like you can't try to swim through coins.
It's a cartoon.
But
they just fill the Ford Center where the Detroit Lions play.
Like it's not like that money was going to sit and not get put to work.
Right.
Like that money was going to be invested.
Right. I understand that.
Put to work. And so, I don't know.
I just have a hard time feeling sorry for that.
Yeah.
Because I don't even understand how that much money works. Does that make sense? Like,
big company.
It's a huge company, one of the largest in the world.
Yeah.
But then, like, when we have the healthcare companies making $30 billion in profit, and I'm trying to figure out how I can lower my premiums.
Mm-hmm.
I actually looked at that today. Man, health insurance is expensive. But it just, like, I don't know. That's just kind of where my brain is at. Like, okay, so you, instead of making $9 billion, you only make $5 billion. I kind of put you in the same box as the lady who's complaining about her caramel sauce instead of the caramel sprinkle.
$4 billion is a lot more than caramel sprinkles.
I know, but
and that lady's just going to go drink that. Like, not going to put it to work. That's the difference. Okay. You're saying that only $5 billion is going to go back into the economy in the form of compensation and capital invested instead of $9 billion. Now $4 billion of that's going to go to the government as a tariff, which, you know what, we need it to pay down our national debt. But it's essentially like taking that money out of investment in the country. And hey, but then on the back end, Trump has investment coming from other sources into the country. Right. So, like, bad day maybe for GM employees, but when it all comes out in the wash, it's a net gain for the country. Like, it's a tough game.
And it's like you just said, it's going to be painful.
Yeah.
I said this last week or the week before. I have noticed that the monthly bill or the weekly grocery bill is coming down for the most part. And I have noticed that certain things are becoming a little cheaper, but I mean, it's going to hurt at some point.
I don't feel like I've been tariffed yet. I'm really trying to watch about the things we buy to see what's got more expensive. I haven't noticed anything yet.
So did you see Amazon has started to post what things are tariffed?
I saw they were going to, but I haven't seen it done.
I haven't seen it yet either.
I bought stuff today and I didn't see that.
Same. So I've been looking for it. The the wife buys stuff on Amazon, and I was like, hey, if you see this, let me know. I'm kind of interested to see what it says. She was like, do you want me not to buy it? I'm like, no. I just want to see what it looks like, because I haven't seen one yet either. But I would imagine that the warehouses are really full, that they shipped in a lot of stuff before the...
I don't know, man. I was working from home on Monday. That truck came down the street 4 different times during the day.
That thing comes around our neighborhood all day.
4 different trucks come through our neighborhood. Not through our neighborhood, just down my street.
I was just trying to see if there was anything interesting on the Twitch.
Carney, Prime Minister, last thing I got on the list. You got anything else? But PM Carney, newly elected Prime Minister of Canada, came down to the old White House today to have a chat with Trump about becoming the 51st state. They did talk about that. And Carney, he ran on that would never happen, and he did ask Trump in the Oval today to stop referring to Canada as the 51st state. And what I want to tell to him is, like, you just poked the bear. He's going to do it more now because Trump's going to do Trump things. Right. But they had a very productive talk, and like when you saw them and their demeanor, and like they had a lunch and they had a meeting in the Oval, like they looked like 2 world leaders talking.
As it should be.
Which is good.
I only saw images. I didn't see the video.
These guys talked like trash about each other all the time, but they come together and they meet. You know, hey, he's the PM of Canada. Trump is the president of the United States. We share a border. They're our second largest trading partner. Like, okay, we can have a talk.
I think that it has to be an open dialogue.
Trump talks a lot of smack, but at the end of the day, he can sit down with a world leader and represent our country well.
I don't worry about that. I don't worry about that. I worried about that with Biden.
I did. Yeah.
Because I wasn't always sure he was even coherent enough to have a conversation.
Speaking of coherent enough, did you see Popovich's press conference?
Yes.
He looks rough. He looks like Biden.
It makes me sad.
Yeah.
I mean, Tim Duncan, for those who don't know, Greg Popovich is the former Spurs NBA basketball coach, head coach. He was there for a long time. Was a thorn in the Mavericks side all through Dirk's career.
Yes. And it doesn't help that the San Antonio Spurs are in the same state as the Mavs, so it's definitely a rivalry there. And
so I always felt like, though, that the Mavericks organization respected him, Greg Popovich, and he is well respected in the NBA. But he has famously coached Tim Duncan, David Robinson, several others.
Short dude. What's short dude? Ginobili.
Manu Ginobili was with him at the podium. When he was introduced, he was helped to stand by Tim Duncan, who looks a lot like Ricky Williams right now. Sidebar. And then as they were leaving, he was arm in arm with Manu Ginobili and Tim Duncan. I know that walk. That was my grandfather's walk.
Yeah.
He wouldn't have been able to walk out by himself. Mm-hmm. But he stepped down as the head coach, which it was kind of known after he had his health scare that he was going to step down, which just a sad day for the NBA, as far as like losing a great figure and status person within the NBA. It's just kind of sad. So I'm pretty excited about this next part of the podcast. So I am Tony Parker was the other guy, by the way. So I'm going to do a quick rundown. I text you about this. So new segment on the podcast. Wow. So I've come up with a couple of names for this. A couple of them were voted down by people that don't. So I think I've stuck with smoke signals.
Okay.
So this week in smoke signals, what this is going to be is just kind of a week rundown in the news. You comment on it or not. Tried to put a little bit of Texas, mostly Texas, since that's kind of what we talk about, but then also some national news that we didn't discuss. First off, there's been several earthquakes out in West Texas. 47 earthquakes since April, the end of April. Felt in El Paso, 65% chance of large aftershocks. Obviously, that's being blamed on fracking.
Yes.
If you don't know. Starbase has been incorporated. They voted their first governor with the May elections in. That was last week. School vouchers passed on Sunday, which was May 4th. Cinco de Mayo. Dallas hosts one of the largest Cinco de Mayo parades.
Which what I've heard is a very American holiday that doesn't get celebrated that much in Mexico.
The defense budget the defense budget. Trump requested $892 billion for 2026 in defense, flat from 2025. The stock market, pretty volatile over the last couple of weeks, up and down. April 30th, down 5% for April. Jobs reports came out. Trade talks hope that we are up 1.5% in as of May 4th. Social Security glitches. System errors marked living people deceased, by the way, causing much concern. As we talked about last week on the podcast, the Real ID came into effect for airlines and domestic flights. I did see today that they were still going to allow people to fly, even if they didn't have their Real ID, but they were going to have to go through more. Yeah, they were going to have to go through more strenuous
They have
things.
talked about this is going to be like the law of the land, no questions, for like 5 years now.
I agree. And I don't think that we have just allowed 2 to 3 hours for TSA is what the Twitch says. That's true. I mean, that's where my mind is.
Guys, TSA pre-check is easy. Just go do it.
I know, but it was like $150, and we don't fly enough for it.
70. Well, yeah, for both.
For 2 people, yeah. What I'm kind of interested, but kind of not interested in. 2 things happened in the entertainment world this week. Sean Diddy Combs appeared in court. I'm not interested in it, but I'm also very interested to see how this all plays out. Because that's a very large figure in the entertainment world, and there are a lot of names attached to that. Maybe bigger than Jeffrey Epstein. Maybe. Not sure if that's gonna.
Well, there's going to actually be a trial.
Yeah,
which you didn't get with Epstein.
And there's no cameras. I don't know if you saw that. They said
yeah.
no cameras so far. Also, the Met Gala was this past weekend. That is the biggest show on the planet.
Those outfits.
Those outfits are way.
Let's talk fashion on the podcast.
Yeah, we're not. We are not the
Fetterman
entertainment.
at the Met Gala. What does he wear?
He wears a Carhartt hoodie and gym shorts, but extra small gym shorts because that's what's appropriate.
That's what's appropriate.
In Brazil, Lady Gaga hosted the largest. I don't know if it's the globally largest concert or if it was the largest for Brazil. Over 2 million people attended the concert. The pictures were phenomenal. Just an image to see if you have the opportunity to go look at it. 2 people were arrested for terroristic plots against the concert. Nothing came from it. NBA playoffs are in full swing, and then a little bit more in entertainment. Squid Games 3, the teaser, has been trending on X.
I haven't watched 2 yet. I watched 1. Watched it.
I watched it too, but
I haven't watched 2. I need to watch it.
So that's kind of the news for the week. That's the smoke signals for the week. We'll see if we continue to do this or not. I kind of like it.
I like it.
Just kind of gives us a rundown. Big week for this household.
Okay.
We're going to see Jelly Roll and Post Malone.
That's when this is coming
on
up.
Friday.
On Friday.
I am so excited. So excited. We bought the parking thing, the parking pass or whatever to get into the parking lots. And man, it's expensive to park at AT&T Stadium. But we waited last time that we went to a concert to like the day of, and it was like a 50% to 70% increase of the day of. Yeah. So went ahead and bought it early.
You got to put that in. More. It's similar with the airport. Like we booked our some of our flights for the summer, and I went ahead and bought parking to go right with it because I want to park at the terminal, and that stuff fills up quick. It's just a part of the. Just got to do it.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I'm a huge fan of Jelly Roll. We talked about this on the podcast before, but also I've never seen Post Malone in concert, so I'm pretty excited about that.
Yeah.
If I had an extra $500 tonight, he's at Billy Bob's.
Really?
Jelly Roll. The Jelly Roll and Friends is the AMC concert tonight.
Man.
Over at Billy Bob's, but man, I just couldn't. It's a Tuesday.
Yeah.
It's a Tuesday.
Yeah.
And driving to Fort Worth on a Tuesday and then having to go to work tomorrow.
We talked about this. We're not too far, but we are a good ways from old Fort Worth.
Far enough away to where I wouldn't want to go to work tomorrow.
Yeah,
I would be shot because I would have to drive home, and the wife and daughter would sleep all the way because, yeah.
I mean, after that, you'd get home in time to sleep for 2 hours and get up and go to work.
Maybe not even that long because last year they didn't even finish the concert until 3:30 in the morning.
Oh, geez. Yeah, no, you're just driving home and going straight to work.
Yeah. I don't think the bosses would like that too kindly.
Probably not.
But yeah, it's a big week for us. Graduation's right around the corner. Still not real sure how I feel about it. But It'll be here before I know it.
Yeah, good deal.
Anything else?
That's it.
Have a great week, man.
See you.